Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Digital Inclusion 101 webinar. It is great to have you here. We are just going to go straight to it. Before we start, we do have this recorded, and we will be sending you the recording and the presentation slides afterwards. And then if you have any questions, we do have a Q&A at the end. So if you do have any questions, please put that in the Q&A chat so that we have it all there. Alrighty. So for our agenda for the next hour, we're going to first talk about the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, NDIA, if you are new to our organization. And then we're going to jump into digital inclusion definitions. Then we're going to go into understanding barriers to digital inclusion, along with how digital inclusion programs address those barriers. And then we'll talk about some solutions, we'll talk about the digital navigators and digital navigator program, as well as the importance of digital inclusion coalitions. Then we have Shauna here to talk about policy, and then we'll talk about joining the NDIA community and answer any questions that you may have. All right. Thanks all for those who are joining. Just a brief note that this is being recorded, and we will share our presentation slides and any resources after the webinar. All right, I will introduce myself. Hello, everybody. I'm Pamela. I'm the Training and Community Engagement Manager with NDIA. I welcome our new community members to our Digital Inclusion 101 bi-monthly webinars such as this. I also host our monthly community calls, so you might have seen me there. And I also help manage the listserv, and I'm also at Net Inclusion doing a lot of community things like birds of a feather, things like that. And we also are joined by our wonderful Shauna Edson. Shauna, please introduce yourself.
All right, hi, thank you. Hi, everyone. It's really great to see y'all today. I'm Shauna Edson, Senior Policy Manager at NDIA. So our policy team works to advance digital inclusion and digital equity policy at state, federal, and local levels. So excited to talk to you about some things we have today.
And our team is remote. So Shauna, where are you joining us from?
I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Awesome, cool. And I am based out in Madison, Wisconsin, everybody. All right. So NDIA, who are we? We are the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, and we advance digital equity by supporting community programs and equipping policymakers to act. We are a community of 2,000 affiliates strong, along with 47 tribal entities in all 50 states, including DC, and all territories, including American Samoa, Northern Mariana Islands, Guam, Puerto Rico, and the US Virgin Islands. And we support programs that are focused on providing affordable broadband, access to devices, and digital skills training and support. We are a knowledge sharing forum. So a lot of the things that we do, including our very robust listserv, we also have working groups on various topics like digital navigators, AI, for example, and digital inclusion coalitions. And our events like Digital Inclusion Week, as well as Net Inclusion. We do a lot of knowledge sharing forums through those platforms. And what we do is we learn what's happening on the ground from you all, and we adjust and create our advocacy efforts to align that. All right, let's jump into some definitions. First off is digital divide. I think if you're here, you probably know what it means. It's the gap between those who have affordable access, skills, and support to effectively engage online and those who do not. And this divide has existed since the beginning of the internet. And the pandemic really exposed the reality and created awareness that many of our community members and communities as a whole don't have the same access, skills, and support to engage online compared to other communities. So you see that through cost, people having to cut the internet service because it was too expensive and they had to juggle between internet versus groceries versus other important bills. And so cutting off internet would make the most sense because there are other places that provide public Wi-Fi. We saw it through education, students falling behind in class because they couldn't connect to their virtual classrooms or not have enough training to navigate their device because we are assuming that, people of a certain age demographic know or not know how to use a device. We also see that through the job market, people not being able to participate in the competitive job market online because they either don't own a device or don't have a strong enough broadband to work a full day or have the essential skills to apply for jobs online, like being able to send an email or even knowing how to properly communicate via email, update their resume, or upload their resume online. And then we also see this through lack of infrastructure. So communities not having access to connect to the internet because the infrastructure isn't there or it's not updated. So this gap exists because of underinvestment in broadband in low-income communities. So there was an investigation by the Markup, and they found that residents of historically redlined areas received significantly slower internet speeds. And digital redlining is discrimination by internet service providers in deployment, maintenance, upgrade, or delivery of services. All right, next term is digital equity. So this is the goal. And some background on these terms. So when NDIA was first created in 2015, one of our first priorities was collaborating with our community to help develop accurate language for on-the-ground work. So the result of that was creation of these terms of digital equity and digital inclusion. And because our community really believed that these terms accurately reflect what people are doing, connecting people to affordable internet subscriptions, connecting them to refurbished devices or low-cost devices, teaching them digital inclusion skills. And so our community is always our source for terms and vocabulary. They help us develop vocabulary and terms around our movement. And so with digital equity, the definition, it's the condition where everyone in our community can get online and use the internet in the way that they want to. And there's a lot of benefits, right? A lot of that is community power. It enables all of our community members to engage, participate, and be active members in our society. In terms of education and advocacy, it allows our community members to stay up to date on current events, be able to advocate for causes, have a voice, submit complaints, and finding community around shared interests. In regards to providing support for people experiencing homelessness, it's having digital equity, it helps them find community resources via phone or a computer lab. It also helps them find access to housing information or enrolling in government programs. It also helps everybody stay connected to their loved ones. We see healthcare access being a popular kind of topic in regards to digital equity. So, people being able to utilize telehealth services so they don't have to leave their home when talking to their provider. They can get diagnoses remotely, manage their medical bills online, schedule appointments online. And beyond that, digital equity, it's enriching, right? You're able to learn new skills, whether it's cooking, learning a new recipe, learning a new instrument, learning a new language. You're able to find community that have shared interests, same passions as you. And it's also very emotional. Having digital skills, having proper broadband, it allows you to feel empowered and have a sense of autonomy. It helps you move from that feeling of, I have to wait for my niece to pay this bill, to I paid the bill online myself. Because with digital skills trainings, for example, you're able to learn how things to protect yourself so that you're not as vulnerable to scams. So feeling confident because you know how to set up two-factor authentication or set up notifications for any withdrawals or deposits that happen. For example, with AI, equipping yourself with the skills to make sure that there is that. Make sure that we're not having unhealthy relationships with AI. So making sure that when you are referring to AI, you are talking not to it as a person. You know that it's a robot and you know how it works. And you know that, in regards to scams, for example, people will use AI to mimic your relatives' voices. So now when somebody is aware of these scams and have the digital skills to kind of filter these out, they know that if they get that phone call, they can pause. They know how to ask questions. They know how to verify with AI, for example, things like that. And so why digital equity? Why not just the term equality? That is because equality does not serve our communities. So both pictures, left and right, have 6 books. But the picture on the right adjusts those books according to the people's needs, so that everyone's kind of starting at the same level here, versus on the left side, where everybody gets the same 3 books and nothing has really changed, they're just all 3 books higher. So with the quality, everybody gets the same resources, opportunities, and solutions, but with equity, it recognizes that different communities have different circumstances and barriers. And so we need to learn those and distribute resources effectively to reach that equal outcome that we desire. So digital equity, it's meeting people where they're at. It requires understanding those special challenges to internet access and effective use. Some communities, it is because of lack of infrastructure. In other communities, it's because they received a device that's not what they need. They actually have the phone they want. They just want to connect to apps. So, a Google Chromebook might not be the thing that they need. Barriers look very different for communities. And equity demands that we avoid making assumptions of what communities need and what those barriers are, and actually outreach and connect with them and engage with them. So some of those examples of community barriers are those systemic barriers like digital redlining, lack of infrastructure, economic barriers, so high cost of internet, and devices are expensive as well. And then also skills-based barriers, so having limited digital skills for effective internet or device use. So achieving digital equity, again, it means learning what those community needs are. So what does that look like? It could look like your trainers and your training, they're multilingual. If that is your community, we reflect what our community looks like. We have staff that come from those same lived experiences. If you're hosting a digital inclusion event, making sure that those events are physically accessible, that it's a safe space for that community to access and reach to, and if it's free, making sure that's known, and if it's easily accessible via public transport. But also in terms of designing your event, right? Did you partner with trusted community leaders and hear what they're saying and what those needs are? Is your program structured on those communities' unique needs? So that's why we're using the term digital equity. And for digital inclusion, did I skip that? Okay, so for digital inclusion, this is the work, right? So it's essentially, these are the different elements of digital inclusion, and it's those activities that are necessary to achieve digital equity. So that includes things like access to reliable and affordable high-speed internet, access to affordable and appropriate devices, providing digital skills training and support, and it's essentially the work that you are all doing. So we'll go into detail in the next few slides, see what those activities look like, but I want to do a little engaging activity with you all. There's going to be a link. Thank you so much, Shauna. There is a link to a Padlet in the chat. You go ahead and access that there, but if you're not able to access it, you could put your answer in the chat here. And the question I want you all to reflect on is, what prevents people in your community from consistently connecting to the internet and using it effectively? I'll give you a moment to think about that while I switch my screens. Okay. So if you want to add an answer, you go ahead and go on the bottom right, click on that plus sign post, click on that, add your answer here, and then you're able to publish right there, and it will show up as a card on the screen. So again, what prevents people in your community from consistently connecting to the internet and using it effectively? You could also put your answer in the chat as well if you're having a hard time with Padlet. All right, we got device. Yep, there's a lot of kind of barriers around devices, whether it's cost, whether it's not knowing how to use it, whether it's not getting the right device that you need. Christian says affordability and literacy. Yes. Avante says knowledge of how to connect to Wi-Fi on their device. Exactly. It's great to have a device, but if you're not able to connect to it, then it just becomes another thing. Kevin says skills, money, and service, where I am seeing a lot of mention of cost, affordability, as well as skills, unfamiliarity with apps and the internet, income and affordability / digital skills. Yes, so we're seeing, yep. So it's the the affordability here, as well as the digital skills and also not knowing how to use the device, those are really big barriers, right? If especially if somebody doesn't know fully what the value of the internet can bring, that's already enough for them to not even want to engage, let alone these other things like cost. And now you have a device, you have to spend time to learn it, and even learning anything new can be a frustrating thing. And there's a lot of emotions tied to learning things about the internet, right? People feel very left behind. There's also a lot of like fear and shame around learning digital skills, especially if the person that they had tried to learn it from hasn't been the most patient. So with teaching digital skills, there's a lot of patience involved in there, and kind of learning where that person is at. If the person you're trying to teach doesn't really know how to interact with a device, using the term like a mouse might not translate to them, so being very specific. Somebody says, hi, John. Digital navigators, awareness and accessibility, user interfaces, and affordability of device and ISP services. Yes. All righty. Thank you all for participating in this. I'm just going to go back to my slides. All right. So we talked about some of those barriers, lack of resources, not having the appropriate digital skills or enough of those digital skills to know how to use their device, and also connectivity and cost. So this is just kind of a chart that kind of summarizes and talks a little bit more about those different barriers. So with broadband, that was addressed, those systemic barriers, as well as it being unaffordable, or also people not knowing that there are affordable options, potentially affordable options, or low cost options for them. But it might be too overwhelming to figure out how to do that, especially if you have to use the internet to do that, right? So this is where those digital navigators come in. And also having unreliable service. If the internet is dependent on the weather being a certain way, that can be really difficult for certain areas. Also with devices. So devices can be very unaffordable. There's also so many of them, and it might be overwhelming for somebody to know which one is the right fit for their needs. Outdated software. Do they does their device, is it old? Is it too old that it cannot connect to Zoom or use those softwares that the current job that they have or that they want to get, is it able to download that, or is it too outdated? And then again, device not matching their needs. And then digital skills, like we had talked about. So having limited skills, or if they know that there are programs out there that teach those digital skills, the timing might not work with their schedule, or if their digital skills are very, very on a basic level, if the only skills that are offered is through online, then that's going to be a big barrier as well. Talked about fear and shame. There's a lot of fear, especially around scams. And if they're seeing that a lot of people are getting scammed, or like big organizations are getting their data leaked, that is enough for them to be like, no, why would I put myself in that? And not knowing that there are skills and tools and things you can do to prevent such things. And also inaccessible trainings. So what is the solution? It's not exhaustive, but the main solutions here are affordable broadband, affordable devices, as well as digital skills training. So we'll go through each one. So the first one here is affordable and low cost broadband. All right, so what is broadband? It's the transmission of wide bandwidth data over high-speed internet connection. And the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, their broadband definition, updated in March 2024, is now 100 megabits for download and 20 megabits for upload. And the FCC, they're the federal agency in charge of wired and wireless communications. So for that 100 download, 20 upload, to give you a practical example, with that, you could have four separate device streaming you could have four separate devices streaming 4K movies at the same time. This is a huge increase from their old definition, which was created in 2013 and stayed all the way up to 2024, where it was 25 download and 3 upload. And so with that definition, only one device could stream a 4K movie. So big improvements there. But again, why does broadband matter? High-speed home internet connection, it's a necessity, not a luxury, especially at this point. So some examples of broadband's importance, paying bills online, curious, how did you pay your last bill? Generally speaking, it's probably online. And you can pay it in person, but there's just a lot of barriers there for people, like taking time off or transportation. For government access, being able to access and submit essential governments and forms, that has to be, most of the time, that's online. Same thing with healthcare access, being able to have virtual meetings with healthcare professionals. You need to be have broadband for that. And that leads us to our next term, which is broadband adoption. So this is where daily internet access, where people have daily internet access at high speeds with sufficient quality and capacity, where they can perform necessary common online tasks like paying bills online, streaming shows, or even playing video games. And they have that with the necessary digital skills to effectively and safely participate online on their personal device or on a secure and convenient network. So for digital inclusion programs who focus on low cost and affordable connectivity, there are a few approaches here. So one approach is that they become a community-owned internet service provider. So they're the ones who are directly providing internet connectivity. Another approach is by providing internet access in community spaces or buildings. So one great example of this is the Chicago Housing Authority. So they have 9 digital resource centers located in various properties and community centers. And so what they do is they offer a computer lab as well as technical support and digital skills classes to residents. Really cool way. And then another approach here is by providing support and guidance. So this looks like educating community members about affordable and available low-cost internet plans for them, and then also providing access and guidance, or providing guidance on how to access these plans. And that could look like a digital navigator helping them fill out the form, like walking them through filling out the form, things like that. All right, during this webinar, we will be sharing many of our resources from NDIA, all of which are free and available to you. So the first one here is the honor roll of low-cost internet plans. So this resource, it lists current offers from internet service providers that have plans with speeds at or above the threshold of 100 megabits for downloading and 20 megabits for uploading. And for cost, these plans have a maximum monthly subscription of $30 a month. And in terms of data caps, the plans included have either no data caps or it's above 1 terabyte. And the next up is the Digital Inclusion Program Manual. This is really great if you are starting a digital inclusion program or you are new to digital inclusion work. So this program manual, it's a resource full of best practices and recommendations from the digital inclusion community. So in there are best practices and recommendations on program development, program models and techniques, as well as sustainable program development guidance. So things like community engagement, evaluation methods, and strategic partnerships, because partnerships are very crucial to this work. All right. Next up, we have appropriate and affordable devices. Okay, so starting off, for the digital inclusion programs whose focus is on devices, there are a few ways that they go about this. So one could be providing the device, right? So they're offering free and low-cost devices to community members. They're also providing ongoing tech support. So like providing device maintenance services or offering technical support as well. They also do a learn to earn model. So what this is students are completing a digital skills class, and then after that program that they have completed, they will receive a device. And then there are also refurbishing and recycling programs. So this is a source for quality, low-cost computers, and it's also an opportunity for community members to learn about device hardware and recycling. So here are kind of the three main devices that we see, right? A smartphone, a tablet, a laptop. And it's helpful for community members to know, like, what are the pros and cons of each and how would it match what they need? So with a smartphone, pros, it's small, it's portable, got a long battery life, but the cost for that is it's not a replacement for a laptop. It's not sufficient for extensive work or for class. And it's great for app using and light internet browsing and communication on the go. For tablets, some pros here is that it's excellent for kind of streaming things, like watching things, Netflix or binge watching. A great battery life, but and it's also more accessible touchscreen keyboard. So it has a nice larger display, easy interface. The cons is that it's not a phone, right? Unless you have that cellular data plan. So you cannot make calls unless you have that data plan. And some apps might not be compatible, whether it's apps on a phone or like a program that you can access on a laptop or a desktop. And then laptops here, the pros here, large file storage capacity, absolutely. The cons here is that it is a shorter battery life and it is the most expensive out of the three typically. So this device is really best for working from home as an essential device, remote learning, and it's also requires tasks. Any task that has like significant processing power and storage, it's going to be with a laptop. And other things to consider, Digitunity, a wonderful affiliate of ours, great partner. They have this device essentials for digital equity. So on top of these just main devices, there are other things people need in terms of devices to be able to use these main devices when they're using the internet, right? So that includes a second monitor, which a few of you might have right now. Another one is a printer or a camera, right? If the device that you have, the camera isn't working, you need a camera, or speakers, charging cord, a desk, portable chargers, things like that. So even outside of just these three main devices, there are other things too that people would need in order to actually use those devices to use the internet. A great example of this is Tech Goes Home. So they partner with social service organizations throughout Massachusetts to deliver courses focused on fundamental digital skills for adults. So courses are offered at locations such as libraries, community centers, public housing, and other nonprofit organizations. So each learner receives a Chromebook and, if needed, 12 months of internet service. So it's a really cool program. And these programs for adults are, some of those courses are focused on digital skills, needing to manage finances, leverage city resources, develop an effective online presence, and accept online payments and more. And there's also programs for families as well. All right. And next up, we've got digital skills training. Okay. So digital skills training, digital inclusion programs that focus on digital skills training, they can be offered in many ways. So first off is a class. So this is for classes for community members with various skill levels. Another one is a one-on-one support and training. And then another type is community support through a helpline. Somebody can call a helpline and somebody will answer and kind of walk them through how to use their device. So some important things here is it's the importance of understanding the community members' proficiency, and not every community will have the same proficiency. We have to make sure we avoid assumptions about current skill levels. So a crucial step here is conducting a needs assessment. And this is essential for developing your course content, right? So determining what that person's existing skill level is, and then identifying what skills community members want to learn. So if they just want to know how to create a dating app profile, doing a crash course on the Google Suite is not going to be important for them, right? So then you can use those assessment results to help develop your program. And we do have those resources there. We'll talk more in the digital navigator portion. And so the Essential Digital Skills Framework. At NDIA, we recommend the Essential Digital Skills Framework. and that's intended to support adults seeking to improve their digital skills. So there's some categories with this. So like, for example, with communication, having the digital skills to communicate, collaborate, and share info through your device. So that looks like setting up an email account, posting messages on social media or different types of content, using a word processing app like Word Doc or Google Docs to create documents, and communicating with others digitally using email or other messaging apps. Another one is handling information and content. These skills look like being able to understand that not all information online and content is reliable and safe. Like, we're not just going to go in our spam folder in our email and start clicking buttons type of thing. So like being able to know that, being able to see a phishing email and say, yeah, that link, that's a scam for sure. And then also being able to search for news on a browser, things like that. Another essential skills is through like transactions. So being able to set up an online account, being able to book or even upload documents. And so a great example here is Digital Lift. So what they do that's really great is they hire culturally competent fluent speakers to offer in-person and virtual digital skills classes. So by hiring staff members that come from those communities, they're able to offer classes in various languages like English, Tagalog, Korean, Russian. And they're a great model for going beyond Google Translate, right? And really catering their digital skills class so that that community can, one, understand it, but two, also be encouraged to ask questions, right? And actually get their concerns and their nerves and word things in a way that the instructor can understand and help them navigate through. And speaking of navigate, we've got digital navigators. So we've covered important aspects of digital inclusion work like broadband adoption, affordable devices, and digital skills. And so one crucial element to connecting our community members to the internet are the digital navigators. So who are they? They are individuals who address the whole digital inclusion process with community members through repeated interactions. So they help a community member find an affordable internet plan. They help community members find refurbished and low-cost devices or matching them with the best device. And also helping community members learn and expand their digital skills. It is a holistic approach glued together by empathy. And so digital navigators, they are the trusted guide. They are the ones who work with community members to understand their priorities and then connect them to the right resources. I like to quote Dave Sevick, the executive director of Computer Reach. They provide refurbished computers, and they also send digital navigators to the home in both urban and rural areas throughout Pennsylvania. And so he has said on a podcast that when you are a digital navigator, it is 80% social work and 20% tech. And that's 100% true. So a great example of this is the Denver Public Library. So their digital navigators are coming from the communities that they serve. They also provide resources to the greater digital navigator community. And they also help refine and update their service models. And they also work to provide digital navigators with tools like making sure that they're part of our digital navigator working group, things like that. So a great resource for you if you are a digital navigator model or a digital navigator is our digital navigator model page. So if you visit our page, you're able to see a skills assessment, kind of what I was talking about earlier, being able to assess your community members on where their current skills are and where they'd like to go. There's also a follow-up survey, a baseline digital navigator job description, which is really helpful. There's also a digital navigator toolkit, which is, I think has been recently updated. And then there's also intake forms and exit surveys. So really crucial documents to give you the data you need to help improve your program. All right. And one more thing before I pass it over to Shauna is the Digital Inclusion Coalitions. All right. So if you are nervous because you feel like this is a lot and you have to do it all by yourself, fortunately, you are not alone. Alongside NDIA, connecting with our community members to answer your questions, there actually might be a digital inclusion coalition near you where you can connect with other community organizations that might not, they could be solely focused on digital inclusion work, and they might not be. They could be a social service program, but they understand the importance of digital equity, and they are all coming together for that goal of digital equity, bringing that to their community. So what is a coalition? It's collective action for digital inclusion. So this is where groups of community organizations, they share a common concern for digital inclusion. So types of members you might see in a digital inclusion coalition include libraries, education institution, housing authorities, workforce development, social service and civic organizations, sometimes internet service providers, with all that common goal of digital equity. And there are three unique kind of impacts or powers of coalitions. So they help maximize. Ooh, Erica says that the page is not found. We will update that. Thank you so much. But yeah, so the three impacts of digital inclusion coalitions. One, it's the advocacy effect. So it helps increase public awareness of digital inclusion issues within their community. Another one is the alignment effect. So they turn individual efforts into a coordinated strategy around digital equity. So it's not just one organization, it's multiple organizations, whether it's like hosting an event or partnering for a toolkit or something like that. And then also networking. So coalitions, they help partners find the right local experts and resources to help scale their digital inclusion efforts and impact in the community as well. So we will update the digital inclusion page link, but if you go to it, once it's updated, you'll also be able to see a map because we did a coalition survey. I think the results came out early last year. So you're able to see the digital inclusion coalitions that have registered with us by then. And you might be able to see one near you because there is a map of all those digital inclusion coalitions that have registered. So a example here is the Alliance for Digital Equity. So they help serve Western Massachusetts, and they're a coalition of community-focused organizations, again, working towards digital equity for their community. So they help people understand what digital equity is, and they also work at the grassroots level to raise awareness and highlight community-focused efforts. And this picture, it's a nice picture to kind of demonstrate like who are the members of the coalition. It's pretty common for other coalitions. So you'll see like funders, people who are focused on serving older adults. You'll see libraries, local government as well, and organizations actually focused on digital inclusion, things like that. And a great resource here is our trailblazers. So digital inclusion trailblazers, they are municipal, county, or regional governments that are paving the way and providing excellent models for digitally inclusive communities. So they demonstrate how local government can support their own digital inclusion ecosystem, and it really serves as a free and open knowledge database for digital inclusion resources and information by local governments. So definitely check that page out. You can see how different local governments, what their digital equity plans look like. There's also like job descriptions on there, survey templates, and their digital equity strategies. All right, we have reached the policy section. So Shauna, passing it over to you.
Okay, saving the best for last. Just kidding. No, now that you have heard all about the different approaches to address digital inclusion, do digital inclusion work to help reach digital equity, I'm going to talk about some of the state and local policy that we have our eyes on. So I'm going to start with the top three digital opportunity policy items. So I'm not going to hold it back. I'll give it to you all up front. We're working to preserve the Digital Equity Act. We are working to ensure that the BEAD non-deployment funds include broadband adoption. And then lastly, we're working to prioritize affordable broadband in the Universal Service Fund reform. So I'll talk a little bit more about each of those. So I'm going to start talking about digital inclusion program funding, which in the policy world, we use the term broadband adoption, which Pamela gave the definition of that earlier. So this is talking about funding that helps support all of the work that most practitioners do, like digital skills training, device distribution. It can also include affordable broadband programs, but there are also other programs that specifically address affordable broadband. Okay, so the Digital Equity Act. The Digital Equity Act, which we call the DEA, was passed with bipartisan support in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act in 2021. So it included 3 grant programs that you can see here. The first one was the Planning Grant Program. It's complete, and all states and territories have digital equity/digital opportunity plans. Just as the Capacity Grant Program, which was for states to implement the plans that they just created. So to do all of the work that the plans outlined. And the competitive grant program we're about to launch, and some contracts have been signed for each of them, and everybody's ready to start doing all of this work. On May 8th of 2025, President Trump announced on Truth Social that the DEA fund was unconstitutional, and the next day, Commerce terminated the awards to states and competitive grantees. So in October of 2025, NDIA filed a lawsuit seeking the reinstatement of the DEA competitive grant program. As of today, the litigation is proceeding, but funds remain frozen, and states and local program have laid off staff. So the president is now proposing to officially execute this rescission in law by asking that it is pulled back in next year's fiscal budget. But that would need a vote. So it's our job to make sure policymakers stand strong and protest any inclusion of a rescission so the program can be restored as Congress intended. Because right now the funds are still there, they're just not being used for the program. Okay, next up we have BEAD non-deployment funds. So BEAD is the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program. It was also included in the IIJA. Congress designed BEAD so states could close internet access gaps. So any areas, according to the broadband maps that the FCC managed in NTIA, any area that they deemed underserved or unserved, BEAD funds went to first. And then with any remaining funds, which are known as non-deployment funds, they had 5 additional uses, one of which was to support the adoption of and use of the new and expanded BEAD funded networks, which includes digital inclusion programs and activities. So in combination with the Digital Equity Act, the BEAD non-deployment funds work to address all barriers to broadband access, including adoption, which is essential for programs to be successful. Infrastructure standing alone does not mean people have the skills or can afford to utilize it. So it really the programs were really designed to work together. But NTIA issued guidance on June 6th of 2025, rescinding prior approval for states' non-deployment funds. It had approved plans before, but with this new guidance, states had to resubmit new proposals, and they said they would offer guidance on the non-deployment funds later. But we're still waiting for those. So we have not heard from NTIA on how these funds can be used yet. So we're working to make sure that policymakers know how important broadband adoption is for the BEAD program to succeed. And hearing stories of the work digital inclusion practitioners do and how it impacts their community members is an essential component of letting policymakers know how important this is. Okay, this is not the part of the top 3, but I'm going to sneak it in. One thing we're currently watching and we're very supportive of is the Digital Opportunity Foundation Act of 2026. Senators Lujan, Representative Matt Suey, and Senator Markey introduced this bicameral act, and it's designed to establish a foundation that leverages both public and private investments to expand digital opportunity nationwide. The good thing about this is that because it includes public and private funds, it would not rely on Congress appropriations every year to be funded. Excuse me, it's very dry here in Salt Lake City right now. I don't know if you've seen on the news, but we have a lot of fires and it's very challenging for air. Okay, it would also award grants to support research and direct funds to local programs that need it most, and equip communities with digital skills to thrive in a modern economy. Okay, next up we have affordable broadband. So right now, the Federal Communications Commission, or the FCC, manages and sets policy for the Universal Service Fund, which is based on the Universal Service Principle, which means that all Americans should have access to communication service, as Congress outlined in the Communications Act of 1934. So this is not a new concept. The USF aims to ensure this universal service is achieved and does so through 4 main programs. So the first one is Lifeline, which is a discount to low-income households for telephone and internet. There's also E-Rate, which is discounted internet access for schools and libraries. There's a high cost program, which provides subsidies to internet service providers in rural areas where it's more expensive for the infrastructure. And then the last one is rural healthcare, which is discounts on internet service for rural healthcare providers. These funds sustain these programs by collecting fees from providers who provide interstate long distance services. So right now, the program is being looked at by a working group in Congress, and they are determining if these programs are indeed achieving universal service goals. So policymakers really need to know that any reform package needs to include a meaningful affordability mechanism, like a new federal benefit program, such as we had with the Affordable Connectivity Program, if you all remember that one, or modernizing Lifeline. So we expect a new framework coming from this congressional working group sometime this year. And then we have under review right now, the FCC is looking at all of the Universal Service Fund programs. But the one I want to highlight here is Lifeline, which is the benefit for qualifying individuals. It provides a discount of $9.25 to people who are eligible, and for $34.25 on tribal lands. And this can be applied to monthly telephone service, broadband, or a combination of both telephone and broadband from participating providers. So I think John posted in the chat how much he pays for internet earlier, which was, I'm remembering right, around $100 for unreliable service. So $9.25 does not really make that affordable. So we're asking that the FCC modernizes this program to actually meet the needs of folks that are living in areas where they have only access to very expensive plans that are not well. So we're really hoping and encouraging Congress to expand that program. Okay, I have two really quick spotlights. State affordability plans. So because there has been a lack of action of affordability plans at the federal level, some states are addressing it at the state level. So one is New Mexico, who created a low income assistance program. They have a state universal service fund, and they're estimating that it will be a $30 monthly benefit towards an internet bill, and can be combined with a lifeline. Next up, we have New York. New York has the Affordable Broadband Act, which requires ISPs to offer plans at a minimum of 25 megabytes for $15 a month or 200 megabytes for $20 a month. So those are some ways states are addressing this. Okay, last up, this is also a bonus item, not part of the top three, but I snuck it in here anyway. Because we're also looking for what is going to happen with broadband labels. So broadband consumer labels are like nutrition labels that you find on food, but it includes information about internet plans. So I would encourage you to look it up and see if you can find your own broadband label for your plan. But I'm talking about it right now because the FCC recently sought more public input on the broadband labels, looking at changing the information on the labels, which could make it more challenging for consumers to understand the material and access them. So we're also staying tuned for what happens with that in the next couple of months. So what can you do about all of these policy things? You can advocate. So there's the old adage, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Well, this is especially true in DC, where there's lots of voices competing for attention. So community-based insights that practitioners and people doing work at the local level can really provide insight into how digital inclusion landscape is shaped for the future. But you have to be at the table, so you have to be contributing to those conversations. That being said, this is really a slow process. It takes sometimes years for policy to move forward. So this is a really long game. Relationship building matters. So reaching out to your members of Congress, to your local elected leaders, letting them know about the work that you're doing and why it matters is very important to them. They need to hear from community members as to why this work matters. So to support this, we have several advocacy resources that I just threw in here, so we probably won't have those in the chat, but we will share them afterward. Lots of templates you can take and use, adopt them for the conversations you want to have and the information you would like to share. Also, watch for updates on the NDIA listserv. We send out all current policy things that come our way. And that is where I'm going to end and give it back to Camilla.
Thank you so much, Shauna. Christian had asked if you have any information on the California Lifeline Home Broadband Program, or just anywhere we can lead them towards, it would be great. And we could also include that in the follow-up email as well. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have that on hand. So yeah, we'll send that in a follow-up email. Great question.
And this is also the type of question to ask in our NDIA listserv. Our community members, especially those from California, would be happy to help you and guide you there. So speaking of our community, very quickly, we have a few working groups. We've got a coalition, Digital Inclusion Coalition working group. So if you are part of a coalition or thinking of even creating one or being part of one, please reach out to aaron@digitalinclusion.org. He's our director of programs and data and research. And then after that, if you are a digital navigator, and all of these working groups, you have to be part of NDIA as an affiliate. So if you are an affiliate and you're also part of a Digital Navigator program, we have a Digital Navigator working group for you. So if you'd like to be a part of that or learn more information, please go ahead and reach out to Nate at digitalinclusion.org. And then we also have a recently created AI working group. And so for that, please reach out to Abby at digitalinclusion.org. This is our resource library, our digital inclusion resource library. Please check it out. We've got really helpful resources at whatever level you're at in digital inclusion work. So we've got that digital navigator model page. We've also got resources for coalitions, the tools like our digital inclusion impact aggregator, and also the Trailblazers program that I had talked about earlier. Alrighty. Next up is Digital Inclusion Week. Mark your calendars. This is really great, especially if you are whether you're new to digital inclusion work or starting off in this movement or not. Mark your calendars because Digital Inclusion Week is going to be on October 4 through 10 this year. So we are including the weekends. And so if you are new to hearing about this, it is an annual week-long nationwide event that is dedicated to raising awareness about digital equity. So during that week, you're going to see a lot of programs throughout the country and sometimes with their international friends that highlight their digital inclusion work. You also see organizations and individuals hosting special events, campaigns, digital skills classes, and conferences centered around digital inclusion. Last year, we had 375 events registered. So we want you to be part of that this year. There's a lot of benefits of participating in Digital Inclusion Week, like raising awareness around digital inclusion, opportunity for visibility on your digital inclusion program, so communities can learn that your program exists, as well as opportunities to gain partners, funders, supporters. And so here are just some pictures from last year's Digital Inclusion Week. City of Long Beach, they celebrated the graduates of the Cambodia Town Digital Learn and Earn program. So they also received a device after that. The Digital Connect Initiative at Gila River Indian Community, they hosted a technology lunch and learn. We see a lot of those type of events. Other community events, one is hosted by the Goodwill Industries of Central Texas. They hosted a Connect to Tech event where community members can learn about digital inclusion programs that are in their community. And we also see proclamations of Digital Inclusion Week happen. The one on the right is proclamation from Baltimore City Mayor Brandon M. Scott, who officially proclaimed Digital Inclusion Week in Baltimore. And last but not least, we invite you to join us for our Net Inclusion Conference in 2027 in Columbus, Ohio, from February 24 through 26. And this is a big staple in the digital inclusion community since 2016. What it does is it brings your friends, your practitioners, your advocates that are all centered around digital inclusion. And it's a great space to share knowledge and discuss a lot of digital equity topics like federal policies impacting digital equity, digital inclusion programming, best practices from across the country, including things like AI, and rural and tribal outreach, things like that. And last but not least, we encourage you all to join our community if you haven't already. The affiliate program is free and available for everybody if you are a nonprofit, community organization, or government entity. But there's also a affiliate plus membership as well. This is a paid membership that is scaled with your organization's budget, but you get more access to NDIA through our additional monthly affiliate plus calls, as well as early access to working groups and discounts to our events like the Net Inclusion Conference. All right. We have 1 minute left, but we kept talking. So if anybody here wants to spend a few more minutes to ask a question, you're more than welcome to stay. But for anybody else who wants to hop off, thank you so much for joining us. We will send the recording and slides to you afterwards. But this is your time to ask any questions, and we'll save some space for that. I'll turn the recording off as well.